I think I've been having contractions. Oh, fuck. Oh, the app's telling us to go to the hospital again now. Very much 1 centimetre dilated, which was devastating to hear. Every time I told a midwife I've been throwing up, they're like, okay, good. What was the last sec? I think we used 3 balls. The midwife goes, you are in established labour now. I was like, no fucking shit. Hey everybody, welcome back to a very special episode of the Hormone Diaries. I had a baby. It has been a while. I've been off on maternity leave for 3 months, doing the parenting thing of a newborn. There will definitely be lots of videos about that here on this channel, but then also on More Hannah, where it'll be like more vloggy lifestyle. But this video, my first one back, which feels very strange. I'm always forgetting how to talk to a camera, but this is going to be all about labor and the birth. I will say, overall, I had a very positive experience. Yes, I was in labor for 4 days. Yes, I did have an unplanned C-section, and on paper you might think, oh my goodness, wasn't that just like the most traumatic thing ever? But no, like overall, I felt very in control of everything that was happening. I felt very informed about decisions that were made and just very supported by Dan, and then also like hospital staff that we interacted with. So despite it being very long and unplanned sunroof delivery, I feel grand about it. I honestly feel really, really great about it. In the moment, was feeling good about it, and upon reflection, also I'm just like, yeah, that went well. Also, Dan and I like to joke about the fact that I basically ticked pretty much all of the like labor and birth boxes, and we will get into the detail of them all. But to summarize, laboring at home, check. Going into the hospital and be told you're not dilated enough, check. Laboring on the birth center and getting into a birth pool, check. Going to the labor ward and getting an epidural, check. Having a C-section, check. Like, there's honestly like all of these different things that could happen during birth, and I feel like I got a lot off on my labor birth bingo card, basically. Not that it's a competition. But before we get into the labor and birth stuff, I think I was 38 weeks pregnant, 37 or 38 weeks pregnant, when I filmed my last pregnancy 3rd trimester update. So I actually want to take us back a bit into those last couple weeks of pregnancy. Also, I have extensive notes on my phone because I would not be able to make this video had I not been during labor making notes of what was happening and what the time was. And I am so glad I did that. So yes, I will be reading a lot from my phone during this video, and then I also have some clips and photos to intersperse when relevant. So at 39 weeks, I had my first sweep. So this is where the midwife sticks their fingers inside your vagina and does a little sweepy sweep of your cervix. This is meant to kind of like activate. I honestly don't know. Don't listen to me. But they can like examine your cervix, see how it's doing, and then also it might give it a little nudge, a little helping hand along the way to maybe kickstart labor. My midwife told me that most people with their first pregnancies have at least 2 sweeps. If they want a sweep, you don't have to have one. We'll have at least 2 before they go into labor. So like the first one that you have, it's very unlikely that it will kickstart anything at all. So I had my 39-week sweep. Apparently my cervix was soft. It was moving forwards. So that was all very promising. It was all getting in position for labor. And then the following day, I actually started to lose my mucus plug. And this is something that can happen after a sweep. It's something that can happen before labor is going to begin. And then I think it can also happen like during labor as well. But your mucus plug is basically this thing, a plug of mucus that is in your cervix, like blocking your cervix, something or other. And it's like protecting the baby from any infections that might like get up there. And so that has to come away before baby can come out. I was getting a lot of like very sticky, stringy, stretchy like discharge, and I was like, is this my mucus And I'm pretty sure that it was. And then like apparently like some people have it all like come out in once, and it's called like the bloody show because it can be quite bloody. But the bloody show makes it sound like a lot more dramatic than my experience of losing my mucus plug. But nothing happened after that. And then I had another sweep at 40 weeks on my due date. And then the next day, once again, more mucus plug was coming out of me. So my due date was the 25th, and then the following day, the 26th, when I was losing my mucus plug again. That day, I also was just feeling very heavy, very sore, just so done with pregnancy. And I remember like Googling all of these things of like signs that labor is about to happen. Like, please, like, what can I do? Like, what signs should I be looking out for? But also on that day, on the 26th, I decided to start a jigsaw. My mum found a 1,000 piece London A to Z jigsaw in a charity shop, and she gave it to me, and she was like, this can help occupy your time during maternity leave, as in maternity leave before Rowan was born, not after. That would be impossible. But I hadn't busted it out yet. But that day I was like, do you know what? Right, I'm the day after my due date. I'm just going to settle in to the fact that I'm going to be late, and that is fine, and I'm going to start this jigsaw. And you know what? It's something that will definitely trigger labor to happen, 100% scientifically proven. Starting a big project that you will then not finish because you'll go into labor. I started that jigsaw and I had a good go at it. And then literally that evening was when I started getting contractions. It all started in this room. 7 p.m. on the 26th of April was when I started feeling some contractions whilst watching Schitt's Creek. But at this point, I really wasn't sure if they were contractions. It very much felt like dull, mild period pains, and they were quite far apart as well. So it was just like, oh, there's another one. I wonder. When it got to about 9 p.m, so this is like a whole 2 hours later, that's when I started measuring them, and I was just using like a contraction timer app thing on my phone. And so after an hour then of measuring my contractions and being a bit more confident that I was in labor, I then called the midwife and was like, hey, this is happening. What's going on? She confirmed. She was like, yeah, it sounds like you're in the early stages of labor. Get comfy, stay at home, you're doing great. Have a good time. I actually have no memory of what that conversation was. I'm assuming that that's what was said. I will say that during those first few hours, Dan was actually in the office playing some online board games with his friends. And I was like, don't worry, I'm doing fine. I was just like watching a movie or something, and I really wasn't in any pain at that point. It was kind of perfect timing because when it started to like really ramp up and I was like, okay, now I think I need Dan with me now. This is getting a lot. Luckily, he was just like, we're almost done. I just need 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And so his whole like board game evening was done, and then he could come and be with me. So the timing's worked out well. It is almost 11 p.m. on Tuesday, the 26th of April, which is my sister's birthday. And I think I've been having contractions for the last few hours. They mostly just feel like quite painful but manageable period cramps. I've only been measuring them for the past 2 hours. I've been measuring them, and we're currently on, they're lasting 39 seconds on average, and they're coming every 4 minutes and 13 seconds on average. Yeah, I don't know. Wide awake and fine. I don't want to get my hopes up. Dan is getting all of the last bits of the hospital bag ready, because also I did ring the midwife, like the triage unit and stuff. They were like, come in or call back again if any of these things, and one of them is like reduced baby movements and stuff, and there have been reduced baby movements today, and I haven't really felt them all that much since noticing the contractions. So I'm keeping an eye on that, but we might go in for some monitoring just to check that baby's okay. Speak of the devil, just felt them. I think they're fine. Oh, hello. At this point, I think the reason why I'm saying that I don't want to get my hopes up is because I kind of still didn't believe that I was in labor and that it was actually happening and that the baby was going to come soon. Like, it still felt very abstract, and also because I was only 1 day after my due date, and I was mentally and emotionally preparing to go like 1 week 2 weeks late. Like I was 10 days late. I think Dan was like 2 weeks late or something. And they say it's very common for first pregnancies for you to go later as well, like after the 40 weeks. So I was fully prepared for that. And so then when I started having contractions the day after my due date, I was like, this is a hoax. This isn't real. No. So then it hits midnight on the 27th, and unfortunately for my sister, Rowan isn't born on her birthday, because her birthday was the 26th, and she was really gunning having her nibbling be a twin for her, but it was not going to be. But around midnight, we're like, okay, let's try and go to bed and try and get some sleep, because it could be a while and don't want to be too exhausted. I'm gonna try and get some sleep. It is almost midnight. We're all packed and ready to go if we need to. I've been feeling baby move, so I'm not worried about that. See if I can get some sleep. See how the contractions are timing. If they are contractions, I don't know. I've tried not to get my hopes up. Averaging 45 seconds every 3.5 minutes. That's quite a lot. They do keep saying like, come in when contractions are lasting a minute every 2 to 3 minutes or something. But I'm not in that much pain, so like, it doesn't feel necessary. How are you feeling? Fine. We're trying to keep real calm over here. And also trying not to get our hopes up. Am I just in pain? In a pattern that is similar to what we've been told labour might be like? Maybe?
No, let me look at the numbers.
Yeah, look at the numbers. Okay, bedtime. Did some labouring in the bedroom. Definitely didn't get any sleep. And then about 2 a.m. I had a bath because the pain was getting a lot. Whilst at home, the only thing that really gave me any kind of decent pain relief was either Dan's hand pressed firmly against my lower back whilst I was having a contraction, or being in a hot bath. Those are the only things that really subsided any pain. Obviously I was having like the contraction pains, but then like my back was killing me as well, just like a constant backache, but then during the contractions, like a really, it was bad. Then after the bath, we come back into here, and that is when we begin our Lord of the Rings extended editions marathon. So 2:30 a.m. we stick on the Fellowship of the Ring to get us through, and Mia behind the camera is looking at me like, what the fuck? Yeah, it happened. That's what happened. So then apparently at 4 a.m, that's when I rang triage again because my contractions were getting stronger. They were every 2 to 3 minutes and lasting almost a minute. And I think at this point they told us to stay at home because we didn't go in then. And then at 5 a.m. I started playing solitaire to pass the time.
And it was decided to, for the first time in our relationship that I remember, play solitaire.
What? You've just never watched me play solitaire, but I have played solitaire since being with you. Oh. Also, this bit wasn't filmed, and I need you to know that this happened. It is real, but I won a game of solitaire whilst in labour. I could probably like count on one hand the number of games of solitaire that I have won in my entire life, and one of them was during labour. So I think that is a win. I would just like to acknowledge that. Dan fell asleep during Fellowship of the Ring, and about 6 a.m. it finished, and I woke him up and he made me a bacon sandwich, which I thoroughly enjoyed and needed because I hadn't gotten any sleep and I was very hungry. 7 a.m. we call triage again because my contractions are getting stronger and I'm very tired. 8 a.m. I have another bath and the contractions are more intense apparently, but further apart. How much of this do I actually remember? Thank God I took notes. Apparently at 9 a.m, then went to bed, and then I've written at 11:30 a.m, I woke up. Does that mean I didn't really get any sleep and I just got out of bed? Whilst I was lying in bed, the contractions were less frequent and further apart. I think that kind of lines up with the whole, like, if you have an active labor and you're like standing up and moving around and stuff, then it kind of helps to speed things along. But if you're kind of like lying and still, which I needed to be because I was so exhausted, but it does slow things down. Still at home. I think the labor like slowed down a bit because I was like in the bath for pain relief, and then we went and tried to have some sleep in the bed. Dan got a good nap in. Oh, there's a contraction. Oh. Fuck. I managed to get like some sleep, but it was like in between contractions. And so I would wake up with a contraction and then try and like
time it. And oh, the app's telling us to go to the hospital again now. Yeah, I think I got some shut-eye. It's like 11:30 in the morning now. But I'm back on the ball because I feel like being horizontal and lying down was probably slowing things. Dan's gonna make me a hot dog for lunch, and
It is ongoing.
and now we're putting on the 2 towers.
Yeah, that's 4 hours.
It's another 4 hours. We joked ages ago being like, oh, you know, just like do a Lord of the Rings extended edition marathon whilst in labour, and now we're on movie 2. So we'll see how it goes. I'm so tired. I just don't want to go to hospital and then them to tell me like, you're not dilated enough and then we have to go home. I have to be 4 centimetres dilated. Imagine if we go in there and they're like, you're 7. But the contractions have been getting a lot more intense. So they're like more painful and they're lasting longer. They're lasting like about a minute, maybe sometimes over a minute. But there's just less of them. Because I did get to the point where they were lasting a minute and I was having them every 2 to 3 minutes. And that was happening for a good few hours.
Yeah, and then they slowed down.
And then they slowed down.
Got stronger.
Yeah, and then they slowed down and got more intense. We'll see. Let's see what Frodo's up to.
So with this contraction app that I was using, it was very funny because it would just keep telling us to go into hospital. Like when you put in the contractions that you're having, it might be like, ooh, get ready. Like you might want to go into hospital soon. Or it might just say like, stay at home, you're all good. And then it also be like, go to hospital now. We got to the point where this app just kept on telling us to go into hospital, but we knew that it definitely wasn't time. And when we rang triage, they were like, no, you don't need to come in yet. We just had a good old laugh every time the app was like, go into hospital. And we were like, no. Right, 12 p.m. that day, we start 2 Towers, the second Lord of the Rings film extended edition. So this next clip that you're going to see was actually taken 24 hours later. I really didn't film all that much during labour.
It has officially been
A long time.
48 hours since.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. 48 hours.
Since I first started experiencing contractions. I have no memory of when we updated, but we went into the hospital twice last night because I was having really regular, long, intense contractions, like the amount that they say, okay, yeah, come in.
You were at like 2.5 minutes before like 1 minute.
Yeah, very much 1 centimetre dilated, which was devastating to hear.
I was actually impressed you didn't have a cry. I actually thought we were kind of at that
Maybe
point.
for the second one.
Yeah, the second one.
Because I was in a
like,
lot of pain the second time we went in, but they gave me gas and air that time, which was taking the edge off, and that was quite good. But yeah, they sent us home to continue labouring. But then today things really slowed down. But it wasn't a bad thing necessarily because it meant that I got some sleep. Contractions were like maybe 5 to 10 minutes apart instead of 2 minutes apart. So I would just pass out in between them and then...
Well, I think the important thing, I suppose, a piece of medical advice is like, just don't bother timing the contractions. I think at some point.
Yeah, we've gone through phases of timing them and not timing them. Sometimes timing them just like adds a layer of difficulty. Like I started timing them again now because I feel like labour's picked up again. So I just wanted to see what was going on.
We had a midwife's appointment this afternoon.
Yeah, it was just like my regular like 40+3 appointment that was still in the calendar, and I'd had enough sleep that I was able to walk to it because it was like a community midwife appointment, so it was local to us. That was nice to help get out the house a bit. They say that the throwing up is very normal and it's like labour hormones, so they're like, great. Every time I told a midwife I've been throwing up, they're like, okay, good. And I'm like, but I'm also not eating.
I do like the need to be dehydrated, but it's good that you're throwing up, which to not helping one another.
One of the times I threw up, I was being monitored for baby movements because I was in a lot of pain, and also I just like hadn't really felt the baby move a lot. And so we went in, they were monitoring me. My back was killing me because those beds just are not great, and they're also not the great position. Like the position that you have to be in for fetal monitoring is not great when you're having contractions. So Dan's hand is under my back, just like pressing up against my back. And then I've got the gas and air. I'm being monitored. I'm having contractions. And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to be sick. And Dan like grabs one of those ball things. And I'm just like lying down like this, vomiting in it and just getting sick all down me.
That was was a lot of sick as well.
It was a lot of sick. I think we used 3 bowls.
It was just a lot of water. There was nothing
It tastes
else.
like Lucasade. We joked about in labour watching all 3 Lord of the Rings films, extended edition. Done.
We should have come.
We could have done it
We could have done it much
4 times over.
You know, we didn't want to blow a load all in one go. That's what got us in this situation.
I'm on the ball, and Dan is massaging my back right now. Dan, the Doula Services Limited would recommend.
So to recap the details of what happened in those 24 hours, after the 2 towers, about 4 p.m, had another bath, thank you pain relief. But after that is when things started to get a bit more intense. We ordered some McDonald's to have to eat, but I was just feeling really nauseous and couldn't eat it. I could not eat it. And I was like, what is wrong with me? And that's when the contractions really started to get intense. I started to get shakes and then vomiting. And at that point we were like, okay, things seem to have turned a corner, so let's go into hospital. That's when they did my vaginal exam, and it turned out I was only 1 centimetre dilated after being in labour for 48 hours. But they seemed really positive because they were like, it's your first pregnancy, your cervix feels soft and it's all come forward, like things are ticking along. And I was like, not fast enough. It's basically the theme of my entire labour. But they gave me some paracetamol with codeine in it, so just like a bit heavier than your regular paracetamol, which I was very grateful for. But when we got back home, there was like more throwing up. I do remember at one point throwing up in Rowan's baby bath, because I think we were like about to leave the house to go to the hospital, and I was like, Dad, I'm going to be sick. And like the closest thing that was like bowl shaped that could catch my sick that he could find was Rowan's baby bath, but it also wasn't quite quick enough, because I remember another time, like I basically threw up on our hallway unit and got sick like over a lot of the stuff on there. There was a lot of vomit. So then we actually went back into hospital a few hours later because I got worried about reduced baby movements, and that was when more vomiting happened whilst they were monitoring baby. They said I was 1.5 centimetres dilated. How exciting. And that was also when I got some gas in there. And now that brings us to the 28th of April. Whoop, whoop, whoop. We got back home, had a bath, actually managed to get some sleep. Did I sleep in the bath? According to my notes, I was in a bath for 3 hours and Dan was also asleep. Dan made himself like a little bed on the bathroom floor, pillows and stuff, so he could be in the bathroom with me and be comfy. It was very cute. 4 a.m, got out of the bath and into bed, and apparently was in bed until 7 a.m. when I woke up. I vaguely do remember actually getting some sleep then. And then we moved into the living room and things had like slowed down. Like I managed to get some sleep. Apparently tried to eat some cereal and threw up again. But then we started Return of the King. How exciting. Apparently at 9:30 a.m. I had a bath and a shower. So not just the pain relief, but like cleaned myself too. Did I have that during Return of the King? Apparently. I definitely remember sleeping through a lot of Return of the King as well. But we finished Return of the King, and then in the afternoon I had a community midwife appointment that was already like scheduled in as being my like 40+3 appointment. And because contractions and everything had slowed down and it was only a 5-minute walk away, we were like, let's go. And I remember the midwives saying when they saw me, they were like, oh, we weren't sure if we were going to see you, because on the system and everything, they can see that I'd been into triage the night before and that I was in labour. So they were like, is she like gonna still be in labour? Is she giving birth? Like, who knows? But no, we went in and I don't know. It was just nice to get out of the house. I can't really remember what happened in that appointment. They wouldn't examine me. They said that was like a triage thing. So then that evening, regular contractions started to pick back up again, and that's when we get to when that 48-hour in clip was filmed. So now we're all caught up and we're going back in chronological order. How's everyone doing? Do we need to check in? Yes, I was in labour for a very long time. I honestly am so glad I took these notes though, because I don't know how much of it in this detail I would remember in terms of like what happened when. So then at 10 p.m, apparently I tried to go to bed, but the contractions and backache were bad, and I wrote bad in all caps. That was the last of my labouring at home. So now we are at midnight on the 29th of April and we go back into hospital. The midwife does another vaginal exam on me, and this time, guess what? I'm a whole 2 centimetres dilated. Whoop-de-doo. So, in order for them to consider you in established labour, and when they will most likely admit you into hospital, is when you are 4 centimetres dilated. And then you don't start pushing until you're 10 centimetres dilated. So we had a long way to go. But while she was examining me, she was just like, oh, your waters just broke. She seemed to think that she didn't do it, because that's one of the risks of like a vaginal exam or having a sweep or anything like that, is that your waters could break. But I didn't feel like my waters had broke. Like there was no extra water. Like I couldn't like see any evidence of it. But in the UK on the NHS, I don't know what it's like in other countries, they say after your waters have broken, your chances of infection increase 24 hours after that. So they really, really want you to be in established labour 24 hours after your waters have broken. If not, then they'll consider other interventions to get the baby out faster, because chances of infection have increased. Because my waters had broken, and because at this point I was absolutely exhausted and in so much pain, they admitted us into the birth centre. Yes, 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 yes. Honestly, so relieved by that point. As someone who has been in hospital a lot for like medical stuff and health things, you would think that I would not like hospitals at all, but I weirdly love hospitals because I associate hospitals with being taken care of. And so when I'm admitted into hospital, I'm like, okay, great, I'm going to be looked after now. So that was a massive relief. Thank you very much. And so when I was admitted onto the birth centre, the painkillers that they can give you there is gas and air, but then they also can give you a pethidine injection, which I think is kind of like a morphine. I think it's a form of morphine. I don't know. I got myself that pethidine injection because, oh boy, did I need it. And I slept until 7 a.m. I'm not entirely sure what time we were admitted onto the birth centre. That I do not have in my notes. But I definitely slept for a good few hours, and that was needed. At 8 a.m. we have the midwife staff changeover, and I'm given lots of gas and air, and my contractions have slowed. That's one of the things that they said that gas and air can do. Like, it's a great pain relief, but it can also slow down labour. From 9 a.m. the midwife was like in the room with us, and she was monitoring my contractions and seeing how I was doing. And I was being more mobile. They were like, we want to see how your labour is progressing when you're like up and about and walking around and stuff. So we did that. We tried a bit of that. So then apparently at 10:30 a.m. I had another assessment, and I was still just 2 centimetres. How exciting. And here I've written waters broke up top. And I think this is about basically that midwife then explained to me, because I was like, I don't think my waters are broken, but I was told they have. And what she said is that sometimes the water breaks from below, so the sac breaks below and it all comes gushing out. But other times the sac can break up top, and so a little bit trickles out, but actually a lot of the water is still like in there and intact. And so then you can have a second water breaking when it breaks from the bottom. And pretty sure that's what happened to me a few hours later. And then after that, I tried doing a bit more active labour. So like walking around, standing up, trying different positions to try and help move things along and get more dilated, please. And actually just walking around the room in the birth centre was the only clip that I got during labour in hospital. So enjoy that. Me and my very stylish nightie that I got on Vinted. But then 12 p.m. my waters broke, and they really, really broke. And that is more of what I was expecting from waters breaking than whatever had happened before. But I remember I was like knees on the floor, on the bed, like having contractions, and like with the contractions, it was just like a gush of water like coming out, and it almost like felt like a release and like a relief as well. There was something quite pleasant, I'll say, about the feeling of my waters breaking. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just like, okay, like something like that needs to come out of me is coming out of me. I did take a photo of the water on the floor. I don't know how much you can see, because obviously it's just like clear water on a white floor, but It was a lot. So after that happened, had a shower, had a lovely shower. And then at some point in the afternoon, they moved us into a different room in the birth center that had a pool, and I got in the pool. However, at this point, even though the baths at home had been really great for pain relief, I think we were just like so far into it and I was so tired. I just couldn't find a good position for myself in the pool. It just wasn't having the same effect. I wasn't even in there for very long. I was just like, this is honestly doing nothing. But I got out of the pool, and at 5 p.m. I had another vaginal exam, and guess what? We're at 3 centimeters. Nothing. So then I was given another pethidine injection for pain relief, and I got a little bit of sleep. And when I woke up around 8 p.m, it was time for the changeover of staff again. And this is when I was told, hey, we're coming up to the 24-hour mark of your waters breaking the first time. And that basically means they need to start giving me antibiotics to help prevent any kind of infection. So what that meant was I needed a cannula in my hand for the antibiotics, and we needed to move up to the labor ward. Honestly, wasn't mad about it. And I was like, does this mean I can get an epidural? And they were like, yeah, you can get an epidural in the labor ward. I was like, sign me up. And so then we get to the 30th of April. Spoiler alert, Rowan's birthday is the 30th of April. So we're in the last 24 hours now. So at about 1 a.m, I get my epidural. And honestly, incredible, amazing. Couldn't feel any pain whatsoever. Like I could still feel, but nothing hurt. And I got me some good sleep. And Dan got some good sleep as well. Like we needed to rest. We'd been at it for so long. But at some point, the epidural did start like wearing off on my right-hand side, and I started to feel like really bad back pain on my right, and they said it was probably something to do with the positioning of it. So I had the epidural repositioned, and that definitely helped. However, it then like came back and they took out the epidural and they put in a new one, and that one was excellent, banging, perfect. So now that I was on the labor ward and I had my epidural, they started monitoring me and the baby. So they were monitoring contractions, and they were also like monitoring the baby's heart rate and everything like that. And all was grand, and I was still like contracting loads, even though couldn't feel a thing. Excellent. So they recommended that I have some of the oxytocin drip to see if that would speed things along and help me dilate. So the drip is what a lot of people get when they're being induced. I wasn't being induced because I was already in labor. They call it like augmenting, I think, labor. But they only gave me the drip for about 2 hours from about 3 a.m. because they were just like, you're already contracting loads, like you don't actually really need this. And so the benefits of it aren't outweighing the risks. And I was like, fine, sounds good, turn it off. Get some more sleep, excellent. And then at 9:30 a.m, I have another vaginal examination, and guess what? We hit 4 centimeters. Very happy. The midwife goes, you are in established labour now. I was like, no fucking shit. I've been at this for like 3 days already, and you're now telling me that I'm officially in labour or whatever. Oh, too much. So then the plan was to continue the situation of me just like chilling out with my epidural and contracting and all of that. And they were going to examine me again 4 hours later, or whatever it is, where they're like the routine examinations that they do, and see if I had progressed, because we were now over the 24-hour mark since my waters broke. So it gets to 2 p.m. I have my vaginal exam, and I am still just 4 centimeters, which was not what we wanted. We wanted a bit of progression. And so this is when we have the conversation with the midwife and with the doctor about our options. So this is how we made the decision about having a C-section. If you watched some of my previous videos, other episodes of the Hormone Diaries where I take you through pregnancy, you'll know that having an elective C-section was something that was offered to me as an option. And it was kind of recommended at first, and then they were like, hey, you can do what you want. So because of my previous abdominal surgeries, there's a risk that there may be scar tissue and adhesions that could obstruct my bowel and obstruct my womb and potentially make a C-section more risky for me. In the end, we decided not to opt for an elective C-section and try and go the vaginal birth route. But what it meant at this stage was that my options really were, we pump you full of more oxytocin and really try and just like get this baby out, like really go, 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 or decide to have a C-section. So with the oxytocin, what was explained to us was that it might not do anything. And also one of the things that oxytocin can do is it can cause the baby distress. Now, Rowan was absolutely chill throughout all of this. His heart rate was absolutely fine. Like, there was nothing wrong with him. They weren't worried about him inside me at all. They said if we give you the oxytocin, there is a risk that the baby could become distressed, and then the need for a C-section becomes more urgent and it's more of an emergency. Also, this was at like 2 p.m. in the afternoon on a Saturday, and so if we tipped over into the evening, then there's no consultant doctor in the hospital. And so by opting for a C-section right now, it meant that the consultant could be the one doing it, and also they have time to gather other surgeons in the hospital to be in the room just in case they needed to intervene with anything else that was going on inside me. And so that sounded like the better option to us. Also, the midwife had a theory about why I wasn't dilating. When she examined me, she said that the baby's head felt like a bit swollen, and so Rowan's head was kind of like pointy instead of nice and flat and round. And so when you've got a smaller surface area pressing against your cervix, then it's not going to like do as much than if you have like big surface area like pressing against it. That was her theory from having a little feel around inside. But it's also kind of wild to me that they can like feel the baby's head inside you. Like, you're like, what? So yeah, we decided to have a C-section, and it was probably the most planned and unplanned C-section could be. We weren't really in any rush. It was like, oh, we'll wait for the last person to come out the theatre, like you're next in line when the consultant is ready. We're gonna page the general surgeons in the other part of the hospital so they can come along and be there. And, you know, they gave Dan his scrubs, he got ready. They looked after me, and then we went to the theatre and did the C-section. So when we were in the theatre, my epidural was topped up, so I was entirely numb, couldn't feel a thing. Dan was by my side and he could hold my hand through the whole thing. And actually, when Rowan was born, like, we did not realise, like, I thought they were still setting up. That's how much I couldn't feel anything. And also they weren't like explaining what was happening as it was. I thought everything was still just like, you know, being set up. And the next thing I know, they're like, here's your baby. And I was like, what? And honestly, I'm really glad that they weren't like, okay, and now we're cutting you open, because I imagine there's probably like some like psychological thing, whereas if you're being told you're being cut open, like you might psychologically feel some pain. So anyway, I'm very glad that it was just this like very rushed surprise. Rowan was born like 2 hours after we made that decision to have the C-section. So it was quick, but it was like, you know, everything was done in a very calm and controlled way, and I felt very chill about the whole thing. Obviously there was lots of crying on mine and Dan's part, but unfortunately I couldn't actually hold Rowan immediately after because he was having some breathing problems, and so he had to have support breathing, and then he went to the NICU, the neonatal like care unit, whilst I was being all sewn up, and then Dan kind of like went between seeing Rowan and seeing me. The whole postpartum thing is definitely another story for another episode of the Hormone Diaries, but I did get one clip of me post-birth in my kind of like painkiller, woozy, what has just happened, but also please someone let me see my baby, is this even real state.
Hello. I just had an unplanned but very calm C-section experience. Baby Rowan is here. I haven't properly met him yet because he's on the neonatal unit just because of some breathing stuff that the doctors are not worried about at all. But Dan's met him a few times, and my epidural is wearing off, and so my scar is achy, but nothing I can't handle right now. How are you feeling, Dan?
Tired.
Yeah.
Tired and emotional.
Yeah. And emotional, yeah. It still doesn't feel real to me because I've not properly met him or anything. It's just like, that feels a bit weird that I've not like touched him. I've not touched him. But yeah, oh my God, I'm so pooped. But I'm staying in here tonight and maybe tomorrow night as well. And Dan's gonna go home and make the flat all nice and tidy and clean.
Yeah, unfortunately, labouring in the flat does make a mess.
Yeah. What a time. What a time.
But yeah, it was weird because I didn't actually get to like meet Rowan and touch Rowan and kind of like properly have it settle in that he exists until like quite a few hours later. And then we were separate for that first night because he was on the NICU unit. But we were reunited the next morning, then together for the rest of his life, my life, my life. It's a weird one because in all of the labour birth advice that you're given, you're told like how important like skin to skin contact is. And so then when you don't get that for like medical reasons, it can feel a bit disheartening and also just like, oh my God, are me and my baby going to bond? Like, are they going to be okay? Like if we don't have skin to skin immediately? But obviously that happens for all sorts of different reasons. And as soon as it was possible, obviously it was just like all of the skin to skin. And then that takes us to today. Just skip forward 3 months of looking after a newborn. What a time. So yeah, I'm back now. There are going to be new videos every week is the plan. I'm going to be working part-time, so as we get settled into this new routine of Rowan being in childcare part-time and me working part-time and also looking after him, we'll see how it goes with weekly videos. The podcast is going to start up again in September. If you want more of the kind of like behind the scenes of the lifestyle element of parenting and having a baby and then also working and all of that kind of stuff, definitely subscribe to my other channel, More Hannah. That's where kind of all of that happens and those kind of discussions around life and work and things like that. Next week we have the floater videos, if you remember them from pre-maternity leave. We have 1 week's worth of videos that we filmed before Rowan was born, so do not be shocked if you see videos of me pregnant coming out next week. And then another thing that we're going to be doing is having guest hosted videos. I'm a bit nervous about it because I know that a lot of people subscribe to this channel because they like me as the host of it, but I'm really excited for you to see these videos with such amazing, amazing people. And when you see them in your sub feed or on your home YouTube feed or wherever you see your YouTube videos these days, please do give them lots and lots of love. I'm also very excited to see these videos that these people create for us. But that's all about kind of reducing my workload, and you know, it's also a bit of a fun experiment to see what we can kind of make here. There's also going to be more episodes of the Hormone Diaries. There's going to be a whole postpartum episode, a whole breastfeeding episode, and then also probably a whole episode about like sex and contraception and intimacy and all of that kind of stuff post birth. And I think that's all I have to say for now. If you have any questions about all of this, please leave them in the comments and maybe we can like start collecting them all and we can do a big like Q&A Hormone Diaries episode, or I can try and answer some of them in the comments as well. There it is. There's my labour and birth story. 4 days, 1 unplanned C-section, 1 beautiful baby, 1 tired mum, and 1 sort of tired but not as tired as mum and dad. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for all of your support and patience during this time, and I'm excited to start making videos for you again. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!